situation. Always trust your gut.
Hello, my name is Chrissy Champagne. You are listening to Residue, a true crime podcast dedicated to keeping you paranoid. Residue is not just another true crime podcast, but a necessary tool for those who want to understand the dangers lurking in the real world. Residue is created, hosted, edited, researched, and produced by me, Chrissy Champagne. Before we get started with today's episode, the best thing that you can do for any podcast that you love is leave a 5-star review, share the episodes, share the social media post. You can follow me on Instagram at Residue Podcast, TikTok, Residue, a True Crime Pod, and Facebook, Residue, a True Crime Podcast. You can also follow me. You know what time it is. It's time for this week's song. And I couldn't really think of a clever one, so I'm just going to go with the most obvious, and it is... Follow the yellow brick road, follow the yellow brick road, follow the yellow brick road. Just hit that follow button on whatever platform you prefer to listen on, and you will be able to meet us back here next Tuesday and every Tuesday. You guys rule. Before we get started, as you know, listener discretion is advised. It was the kind of October morning in 2003 that made Cape May feel like magic. Cape May is known for its quiet charm, pastel-painted Victorian homes, breezy coastal roads, and beaches that stretch for miles. In the fall, the summer crowds thin out and everything slows down. It's the kind of place where locals greet you by name, and it feels peaceful and predictable. But that morning, in October of 2003, a fisherman spotted it first, a dark shape bobbing in the gentle waves. And as the fisherman got closer, the silhouette sharpened into something human. It was a body, a female body chained up. October 8th, 2003, a foggy morning, the Coast Guard arrived on scene to find a female body, bloated and decomposed, surfacing in a current she never should have been in. Chains were wrapped tightly around her ankles, duct tape binding her wrists and feet, a rock crab, a bottom feeder, gnawed at her thigh, confirming what police feared. Her body had sunk to the ocean floor before drifting free. The medical examiner couldn't even take fingerprints. Her hands were too waterlogged. So he did something rare. He injected her fingerprints with saline, plumping the tissue just enough to coax out a usable print. And by morning, they had a name. Kimberly Holton, 16 years old, a missing foster child from Dover, Delaware. So now detectives have a name, they have an age, and they have the fact that Kimberly was a foster child. And the foster care system is supposed to be a safety net, a place where children are protected, nurtured, and given a second chance at stability when their biological families can't provide it. But for too many kids, including Kimberly Holton, that safety net has holes. Kimberly was placed in foster care because her home life was unsafe. She grew up with no food, no love, no security. Kimberly was taken from her biological mother, and she bounced around from household to household, some of them meaning well and some didn't. One of her foster moms loved her deeply, and she planned to move Kimberly to Tennessee, but that was until her biological grandparents showed up, paperwork in hand, and took Kimberly back. And you think that would be a wonderful new beginning for Kimberly, but it wasn't, because that arrangement didn't last either. Her biological grandparents put her back into the system. And just like that, Kimberly becomes another case just shuffled through a broken system. Finally, she landed in the Machette home. The Machette family lived in Dover, Delaware, consisted of the foster mother, Lorraine Machette, her estranged or ex-husband, Rudy, and then there was also another foster child living in the home named Heather. So Kimberly had a foster sister. On September 30th, Kimberly, or Kimmy, we're going to call her Kimmy from now on because that's what her friends called her and that's what she loved to be called. Kimmy didn't get on the school bus and she never missed school. Her best friend knew something was wrong. You know what we say, the best friend always knows. Kimmy was described as the type of girl that was loving, caring, sweet. She adored animals. She loved taking care of animals, and she confided in her best friend that she hoped to be a vet one day. She was also the type of girl that loved exploring the woods, and she loved arts and crafts. New Jersey State Police contact the Delaware State Police because that's where the missing persons call was placed by Lorraine Machette on September 30th, 2003. Lorraine called in because Kimmy never came home. And so police call Lorraine Machette and they do inform her that Kimberly's body has been found. Lorraine comes down to the police station for an interview and she is hysterical. She is visibly upset. She told detectives that Kimmy had run away before and that sometimes she'd get upset, she'd take off, but she'd always come back. She said Kimberly had been acting strange in the weeks leading up to her disappearance. She was acting distant, anxious, scared. And detectives start wondering, well, what is going on inside of this foster home that would cause a 16-year-old girl to keep running away, to keep trying to leave? And this is when the name is said. Rudy, Lorraine's ex-husband. Lorraine hesitated while talking to detectives, but then admitted Kimmy had come to her in confidence and told her Rudy had done things to her, that he would sleep in her bed, that he would touch her. Kimmy said he was molesting her, and just days later, she's gone. So at this point, Rudy was already scheduled to appear in court for an unrelated charge, but now investigators were convinced that they had their man. They have a troubled teenager, a history of accusations, a predator with access and motive. But when Rudy is brought in for questioning, something didn't sit right. He was calm, he was cooperative, he was shocked, and most importantly, he had a solid alibi. But this had to be the guy. I mean, even Kimmy's best friend told detectives that she had to tell her parents that Rudy was following her around the neighborhood in his car all the time and she was getting creeped out. So police were called on Rudy because he was following Kimmy's best friend. But while police have him sitting there in front of them, it just didn't add up. They checked out his alibi, it held up, and just like that, Rudy Machette is cleared. When a body is pulled from the ocean, it obviously doesn't come back clean. The salt water erodes, marine life feeds, evidence slips away, and before the medical examiner could even begin Kimberly Holton's autopsy, the team had to carefully remove everything that had clung to her. The barnacles, the duct tape, and most disturbingly, the chains wrapped around her ankles. There were no signs of sharp force injuries, no gunshots, no knife wounds, but there was one thing the water couldn't hide: blunt force trauma to Kimmy's head. It wasn't from a weapon. The coroner believed it came from a fall, a significant fall. There was no DNA, no hair, no fibers, no clear fingerprints. All they had was the chain. And sometimes one piece of evidence is all you need. This is where you realize how badass forensics, medical examiners, the detectives, everyone comes together with this one piece of evidence. Every link in a manufactured chain carries a microscopic stamp, a sort of hardware fingerprint. Investigators followed that trace back to a specific brand and model sold at only one location, a Lowe's hardware store near Kimberly's foster home in Dover, Delaware. So, detectives go to Lowe's, they questioned the store manager, and this store manager was able to pull the exact purchase. I mean, it's pretty remarkable. I don't know why people think they can get away with murder, like, at all. Whoever bought these chains also bought clamps and a set of cinder blocks. These were all bought together on September 30th, 2003. That was the day after Kimberly was reported missing. The manager was able to give police a timestamp, and so surveillance footage was pulled. The quality of the video was really grainy, so faces weren't crystal clear, but you could see two male figures standing at the register. Their builds, their movements, and even the way they interacted with the cashier, it gave detectives something to work with. So the video was released to the public, and this is all that detectives needed. There was a flood of calls, and in all these calls, one name kept coming up over and over again, and that name was Robert Brothers. But before police could even chase him down, Robert called them. Robert saw the footage on TV, and he admitted, "Yeah, that's me." It was October 17th, just 9 days after Kimberly's body was found. Robert Brothers walked into the police station voluntarily. He was calm, he was honest, he was cooperative, and yeah, he was the one in the footage. He said he did buy those chains. But no, he said he didn't kill Kimberly. He told detectives he was with someone else that night, the second man in the video, Jacob Jones, and that Jacob had convinced him the chains and cinder blocks were for weightlifting. He was going to make a makeshift home gym. Nothing more. That's it. And detectives didn't buy it. I mean, not really, but Robert's story didn't waver, and there was no evidence tying Robert to Kimberly except for that one receipt from Lowe's. So before letting him go, they asked him one more question, and they said, "Is there anyone you think we should be looking at?" Robert hesitated, and then he said, Jacob Jones was dating Heather, Kimberly's foster sister. There had been a lot of tension in the Machette home. There was a lot of tension between Heather and Kimberly. There was jealousy and there was friction. Kimberly was beautiful. She was magnetic. And Heather didn't like sharing attention, not with boys, and especially not with her high school sweetheart, Jacob Jones. So suddenly this story is widening. This wasn't just about a runaway girl or a creepy foster dad. This is deeper. This is personal. And now Heather is in the interrogation room with the detectives. She admits, yes, I fought with Kimberly. She took my things, and it wasn't just once. She was always in my things. Heather is crying hysterically. She is saying over and over, she had nothing to do with this. She admits to detectives that yes, she told her boyfriend Jacob that she was upset. But then she pauses and she just keeps saying over and over, but I didn't know. I didn't know what happened to her. When the interrogation turned to the chain and the cinder blocks found with Kimberly's body, Heather just kept shaking her head no. She kept saying, Jacob bought those? I don't know. I don't know. All I know is that I'm innocent. And she kept pleading with the detectives, swearing she had nothing to do with Kimberly's disappearance. But beneath her tears, the detective sensed something more, some unspoken tension, and they still knew that the real breakthrough was going to be speaking to Jacob. 20-year-old Jacob Jones walks into the police station. I mean, this guy, he looks like he is visibly about to have a panic attack. This guy is sweating, his face is pale, And Jacob wasn't the detective's usual suspect. This kid had no criminal record, a 4.0 student at Delaware State University. He was an aeronautical major, a licensed pilot, and a flight instructor at Dover Air Force Base. Yeah, but, none of that prestige matters to detectives in that interrogation room. Across from him sat two detectives who were very methodical and very calm. They say, "We've got chains and blocks connected to Kimberly's case. Explain how you were going to use those cinder blocks and those chains for exercise, Jacob." And Jacob just kind of stammers and he quivers and he just shakily says, "For weightlifting, the chain and the cinder block were going to be the weight." And then he says, "I honestly have no idea how that chain ended up around her ankles." Detectives ask again about the cinder blocks and they ask where they are. And Jacob says, "I don't know where they are. I swear, I've got no involvement, but I will not be speaking any further without counsel." So Jacob asked for a lawyer and the interview had to stop. So Jacob isn't talking, but investigators start to piece together every clue they have. And the first thing they do is go straight to Jacob's boss. And they ask him, has Jacob been different at work? Has he missed any work? And his boss mentions that, yeah, he's been late for work often. He's been missing work. His nerves seem frayed. He seems really angry every day, and something doesn't feel right with Jacob. So they check his flight log, and on September 30th at 11:45 p.m., Jacob chartered a plane out of Cheswold Airport. He returned 2 hours later. I mean, this timing aligned perfectly with the window of Kimberly's disappearance. So what if Kimberly's injuries weren't from a fall into the water, but from being plunged from a plane? The impact trauma suggested a violent drop, remember, from a significant fall. So if this was the truth, the police didn't think that Jacob could do this on his own. They said this kid weighed maybe 130 pounds. He was a short guy. So who helped Jacob load Kimberly's body into an airplane and dump it into the Atlantic Ocean? Detectives are planning to move in on Jacob, and that is when they receive a phone call from Jacob's father. Jacob sat his mother and father down when he got home, and he admitted to killing Kimberly Holton. He told his parents that he blamed household tension within the foster home. He said that Kim's relationship with his girlfriend Heather was very bad. The two were fighting nonstop. There were constant arguments, and Jacob felt compelled to handle it on his own. He needed to take care of the situation. Jacob confirmed to his parents that the chains and the cinder blocks were premeditated, and then he said that there was another guy that helped him do this, and this guy's name was Michael Kaiser. And after Jacob confessed to his mother and his father, he walked upstairs, he went into his bedroom, he took a shotgun, and he took his own life. 23-year-old Michael Kaiser was a security guard at a local racetrack. He knew Jacob Jones from a previous job. I mean, the two worked together once, but they weren't quite friends. They were just more acquaintances. And Jacob's mom and dad come to the police station, and together with the detectives, they come up with a plan. So the plan is that Jacob's dad will call Michael Kaiser's cell phone as this guy, Michael, is driving to his job. Now, police had Michael's car surrounded with unmarked cars, but Michael didn't know this. So Jacob's father calls Michael and tells them that they do have a suicide note written by Jacob, and in it states that Michael helped kill Kim. And Jacob's dad says that he is now on his way to the police station to tell the police. Now, Michael doesn't know that his dad's already at the police station. So the unmarked cars spot Michael driving erratically as he gets this phone call. He drives straight through a grass median, turns his car around. The unmarked cars are following him, but surprisingly, Michael drives straight to the police station, runs in. He's sweating. He's hysterical. He runs in and he says, "Yes, I am Michael Kaiser. I need to speak to the detectives now." Michael admits that he helped Jacob and he wants to tell his version. On September 29th, 2003, Jacob tells Michael to pick up Kimberly. They go to the Wawa together to get a drink, and it's just Michael and Kimmy. Michael lured Kimmy to a local hotel, but Jacob was there waiting, and when they get to the hotel, the three of them actually start hanging out. He says they were joking around, having some fun, and Michael says he didn't think anything was wrong, but then Kimmy goes to the bathroom and Jacob whispers to Michael that he wants to kill Kimmy, and he wanted Michael to help dispose of the body, but Michael said no, and he says that Jacob said, "If you do not help me, I will kill you too." So he admits to helping dispose of Kimmy's body, but only because he is afraid of Jacob. He claims he didn't know about any pre-plan to kill Kimmy. Jacob has Michael hold down Kimmy while he puts a phone cord around her neck. And then he puts a pillow over her head and suffocates her. Michael tells detectives that Kimmy wouldn't stop kicking, and they kept holding her down. Then he said he felt her legs stop kicking. Jacob felt for a pulse, and they realized Kimmy was dead. Jacob then wanted help pulling her body down to his truck, and that was it. That's all Michael helped with. That was the end for Michael. Detectives realized that Kimmy was probably killed around 2 a.m. and then her body was left inside of Jacob's car almost the entire day until the two of them, and yes, Michael did help with more. He didn't stop at just putting Kimmy's body into the truck. The two of them then meet back up at the airport where Jacob chartered a plane, and they both load Kimmy's body into that plane. So with this information, detectives go and hire this Air Force expert who says that there is this installation system where they can figure out where your plane is going. And they ended up figuring out that Jacob Jones took off from the Cheswold Airport. He flew out over the Atlantic Ocean and he dumped Kimmy's body out of that plane. On October 24th, 2003, police arrest Michael Kaiser. And on January 6th, 2004, Michael Kaiser is found guilty of first degree and conspiracy. He was immediately sentenced to life in prison. This guy barely knew Jacob, and he barely knew Kimberly. Jacob is gone. Michael Kaiser is spending the rest of his life in jail, and just to tie up some loose ends, police bring Heather back in to an interview room because they still don't have a motive. Michael Kaiser couldn't tell them anything. He didn't even know why he helped Jacob. He didn't even know Kimberly. So detectives ask Heather again, "Did you have anything to do with this?" And again, they realized that Heather actually did have no involvement in her foster sister's death. We will never know the real motive. The plane that Jacob was flying was at such a high altitude that when Kimberly's body struck the ocean, the water hit back like concrete. Traveling at over 130 miles per hour, her fragile body suffered devastating impact. The cinder blocks meant to keep her hidden beneath the surface of the sea, they shattered on contact. They disintegrated. Kimberly's body rose to the top. Kimberly was a young girl who slipped through too many cracks, failed by the very people and systems meant to protect her. Along the way, too many adults looked the other way. But even in death, Kimberly's story rose to the surface. She wasn't lost forever. She wasn't forgotten. Stay safe and stay paranoid.